This type here, Yerushalmi Eruvin. The article Osvar Dashim with Dav Samach Daud Amr Aleph, and we're in the fourth line down, Amr Rabbi Zizrika, which in the Vilna is on Daf Nun Tes Amr Aleph, and it is starting from the bottom, 3, 6, 9 lines up. So yesterday we talked about the issue of Baal Tosif, where he said there is no Baal Tosif by the two pairs of tefillin, and there's a Mokum Parosh Shnei Zugos tefillin. So now we're discussing the Mokum tefillin. So Rabbi Sika said, as we Rav Huna said, the place where you can put on tefillin is Mokum Shemochel Shotino Grofev. So the place where when a child is born, the skull is not properly fused in front, and there's a soft spot on the front of the skull. So that spot, evidently, when the child goes as an adult, that spot actually takes up the place, has enough space for two pairs of tefillin. Tamati, we learned the Adios. There was a chicken which was stoned in Yerushalayim, Shargas and Evish, because it actually killed. And the halacha is that if animal kills, you kill it. It's in the Sanhedrin. He saw that the head of a child who had a soft spot in front, and he went and he pecked there until the child died, and therefore the chicken was put to death. Okay, so now Gemara gets back to its issue from before. We discussed yesterday whether, according to Gamliel, it's mechuver, it's deraisa, that there's no mitzvah of tefillin on Shabbos, or it's not mechuver, it's not deraisa, it's only drabanan. And fascinating machlekes, and I'm going to learn this like Reb Chaim, based on this issue. So, Rabbi Yossi said, Kini must, this is the way to learn our Mishnah, according to Gamliel, ubilvad shnayim. You have to dafka wear two pairs of tefillin, according to Gamliel, each time. Gamliel said, shnayim, dafka two pairs at a time. Yesterday, Boom said, no. You don't have to put on two pairs of tefillin. You can even put on two pairs of tefillin at a time. That's machlekes. So, have a boy Mema that wanted to say, Al Daita, now here we're going to change gears like Reb Chaim. There are other ways to change gears, but going to go Reb Chaim. Al Daita de Rabbi Abba, according to Rabbi Abba, who said, Afilu shnayim, ain't mechuver. It's not mechuver, meaning, as the Reb Chaim explains it, where is it here? So Shabbos is man tefillin, and the reason to put it on two at a time is because there's a place, and that for 2% tefillin, and there's a mitzvah even by two, right? Because it's not Baal Tosif. But however, if he wants, he can put it on one by one, not a problem. That's according to Rabbi Abba. Al daita to Rabbanon, you're changing it to actually start to Rabbi Yossi. According to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi says specifically to mechuver. It's the raisa, meaning it's fascinating that he goes in that opinion that Shabbos is lavas man tefillin, and there's no mitzvah to put them on. So, but they're matir and derech malbush because of bizayin tefillin, and therefore he has to specifically do two in order to diminish the masui. In other words, he should diminish the amount of carrying he's doing, even though we're matir him to do it. But they said, yeah, but you have to take as many as possible at a time. So how many can possibly take? Only two, because derech malbush. 3 is not derech malbush because it doesn't mimic the mitzvah, which doesn't exist on Shabbos, but doesn't mimic the mitzvah. But you have to specifically take 2 at a time in order to make it derech malbush and as few times as possible. Okay. So the Gemara asks, bring them in your hand. The question according to Rabbi Yossi. So if you say it's a masui, it's not. There's no mitzvah, right? And the only thing is not because of bizayon. Okay, so if that's the case, so bring him in your hand, and even more than 2, because it's a masui anyway. Now I think it means pachs amos. You know, Reb doesn't say it explicitly, but I assume that that's what it means. In other words, okay. If you're trying to diminish the amount of times he's carrying it, so let him bring many pairs of tefillin at once in his hand, less than 4 amos. right? Because anyway, saying that there's no mitzvah, so only he's trying to be in mind. So he's saying, okay, so do it derech malbush. I have a better answer. Do pachas mi'arba amos and take as many as you can at once, right? So that we're diminishing the amount of the amount of techiyah of Shabbos that you had to be doiche. The Gemara said, no, still mutar avir derech malbush lo derech masui. It's better. It's less of a bizayin of Shabbos to bring them derech malbush 2 by 2 than to bring derech masui. Even though they're going to bring much more at a time, still it's better to do it derech malbush. Mutar. Okay, but still no. So why 2 at a time? So that's for the flip side. In other words, muta, even though derech malbush is better than derech masui, but still muta v'ilchus Shabbos machas lo shtei pamim. It's better derech Shabbos once, not twice. In other words, that's why you put on 2 at a time, which is the maximum derech malbush, because it looks like you're doing the mitzvah as you would do it on a weekday, and therefore dafka 2 by 2. That's why it says specifically 2 by 2 in order to kind of reconcile it, to make it derech malbush, so it's not more bizayin Shabbos like derech masui, but also to remind it dafka 2 at a time and not 1 at a time, in order to make sure that you're being derech Shabbos fewer times. It's another fascinating discussion. So it says Gemara Tani, we learned Brisa echad isha echad isha. Both man and woman could bring it from this way on Shabbos. So I'm playing they wanted to say, okay, Madamar Mechuru. He holds it the Raisa, Shabbos not that Zemilin, Tefillin, Nicha. So, okay, so then he's saying, anyway, we're not doing it because of mitzvah, we're doing it because it's derech malbush. So, okay, so it's derech malbush for, it's not the Tefillin for either one of them. For both of them, it's derech malbush, and it's fine. But he holds that the prohibition of Tefillin on Shabbos is not the Rabban, is not the Raisa. The Raisa, there is a mitzvah Tefillin on Shabbos, and that's what we're meant to bring it in, because it's derech mitzvah. So if that's the case, nicha, but madamar ein mechuvar, lo yeh mechuvar etzel ish, v'yeh mechuvar etzel isha. Okay, it's not mechuvar by a man, and therefore he can bring it. But it's mechuvar by an isha. It's a little bit difficult the way of the lashon. Lo yeh mechuvar etzel ish, v'yeh mechuvar etzel isha. It is mechuvar, not the lashon hey, but it is mechuvar by a woman. So therefore, she shouldn't be allowed to bring it in. Only a man. So to actually Radal here, he says, it must be, that's only because of Hatzalas Tefillin, right? And he writes, Baruch HaMeir Nai B'derech Emes. Okay. I just found it interesting. He says, Baruch HaMeir Nai B'derech Emes. I don't think it's his last comment. Maybe it's his last comment on Yerushalmi Eruvin. That's why he says it. Could be. It's like kind of like a siyum of the Radal and Eruvin. That's why I said it. Okay. Anyway, so Rabbi Lezer said Mantana, Isha, who's the one who says even a woman could do it? Rabbi Gamliel, because Gamliel holds taka that there is it's a daraisa by a woman. The Tani we learned Tavi Avid Rabbi Gamliel had another sin tefillin. Tavi was the Evran Gamliel, but put on tefillin. So Rabbi Gamliel was not moich in his hand, right? So and the Reb Chaim takes out the next words v'kam bichu biyada. Doesn't really fit in. Whoever the isha, and according to him, takin isha would be mechuyevet tefillin. Micha basho could put in tefillin according to Reb Gamliel. So the Erechami, that opinion that echad isha could also be going according to Gamliel, who holds that a woman does have a mitzvah tefillin. Midaraisa, and that's why he allowed Tavi a slave to put on tefillin. So it's not a chiyuv, but it's a kiyum, as we would say. So any other mitzvah seisha as mangroma, where there's a kiyum, not a chiyuv. Okay, so now we go on to the next part of the Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, "Bamed v'rim b'yushanos, avachadash is potter." You leave him out of the field. So the Gemara quotes and says, "Bamed v'rim b'yushanos, avachadash mutar." It's the same as when Mishnah says potter. Mutar means that you're allowed to leave them out in the field. Lama, why? Yushanos b'dukos, the old ones are known. They are that they're definitely tefillin. but they're checked or they have there's an assumption. But new ones, we don't know if they're actually kosher tefillin, and they may not be tefillin, they might be a kameh. Okay, Tani, we learned tefillin till about achas l'shteimas chodesh. Divrei Rebbe. You have to check them every 12 months to make sure they're still kosher. They don't have to check. You don't have to check tefillin. And the next more, although it's a little bit cryptic, evidently it's a proof. These are my tefillin from my grandfather, my mother's father. And evidently he didn't check them. He just assumed they're kosher. Tefillin, it's, they don't go bad so easily, and because they're sealed up, and opening them up does cause problems too. So they just left. He had not to check them. Okay, so matzah shnayim shlosha tzvatim. So you find 2 or 3 bundles of tefillin. So it's not talking about Shabbos. It's talking about just you found them and you want to check to see if you can assume that they're kosher tefillin. So bodik zug rishon mitzvahs rishon. You check the first pair in the first bundle. V'chein b'sheni. So to the first pair in the second bundle. V'chein b'shlishi. And so too 1 pair in the third one. So Rabbi Yitzchak ben Eliezer didn't like this. He said, "Rabbi Yitzchak can one tzvas, when you find a bunch of bundles, can one bundle be a chazaka for all of them? Or each one it has to be checked itself. If one of them is chazaka for all of them, but all you have to check is 1 pair from 1 bundle, then you assume the other bundle is okay. So obviously they're in proximity, they're found together. You're going to say, no, each one requires a chazaka by itself, then bodek shlosh zugs b'chol tzvas. You have to check 3 pairs from each one. What is this thing that you check 1 from each? It should be just 1 for all of them, or 3 from each of them. The Gemara doesn't give an answer to this issue. Gemara goes on to the next part of the Mishnah. There's a time of danger, you cover them up in the field, and you go. Okay, if it's the rainy season, harezim atef or umechason. So you cover them with you wrap them with leather and you cover them. So Pnei Moshe says Tosefti perches shas kitzer batoka. There's a Tosefta and the Shas abbreviates it. It says there, Hamotzi Sefer Basada, so you find a Sefer Torah in the field. Yoshim Shamar Mechat Machshalav. You sit and you watch it until nightfall. Then you take it to Volo. Uvasakona Minicho Volichlo. The Sakona, you leave it and you go because you're afraid to be found in Sefer Torah. Imayuk Shamim Yordim, if it's raining, Harez Misatef or you wrap it in leather, so you cover it. Sefer Torah. You cover yourself in the cloth of the Sefer Torah. Negdo, and you put the place of the ksav is opposite yourself. And then you continue covering yourself until you're wrapped in it. And you come in, Davi Derech Malbush. So you keep on wrapping yourself with Sefer Torah, and you're walking with the Sefer Torah as kind of a poncho. So the Yerushalmi Kipshuto goes up Bnei Moshe, but he says the mechason doesn't mean you keep wrapping yourself in Sefer Torah. He says that you wrap yourself in Sefer Torah, and then you put an additional layer, like a mantle, on top of the Sefer Torah which you're wearing. And Reb Chaim also says that mechason, you cover yourself with your clothing on top. In other words, you wrap yourself in Sefer Torah, and then you put whatever clothing you have on top of it, like a mantle. So raising this, I think the Carbon alerts is talking about carbon. It's not clear what Carbon is saying. Okay, we're just going to play Moshe. Carbon also means the same thing, but it's very terse. Rabbi Boaz said, Hadar Tamar Berach. That's if the Sefer Torah is soft and easy to wrap yourself in it. So then it looks like you're wearing a garment. Avol because if it's a hard klav, kemasuhu, then it's like a burden, and that it's not going to work. Okay, B'shua Mocha Mindron. The Reb Chaim says the story about where the place of the Sefer Torah is, but it can also be talking about tefillin. The whole problem with rain, although because we learned the Brisa about tefillin, so about Sefer Torah, so perhaps this is a continuation of the discussion of the Brisa, but also about tefillin. The problem with Shamim is when it's a slopes. So so it's going to get wet. The rain is going to collect there, and the Sefer Torah is going to get ruined. But it's it's not a place which is a slope. So then we're not concerned the water is going to collect. You can leave the Sefer Torah there until after Shabbos. The Kormei learns very differently. The Kormei says opposite. He says Minjo is good, right? Although I'm not sure, and therefore according to Makom Muchon, it's not talking about time of rain. It's about going back to the issue of when you can leave out in the field. Say if it's a place in Makom Mutzah, you can leave it there. Even if it's a derech, but if it's in the middle of nowhere in the road, then you can't cover him. So obviously he's learning that the whole discussion is about tefillin. I said before it's Torah, so it wasn't clear if Torah is safe or not. No, it seems that he's talking about tefillin, which is very difficult. So it's much easier to go with the Reb Chaim and the Pnei Moshe say about the Sefer Torah, saying that if it's a Mokom Mindaron, then you can't leave the Sefer Torah there. You should wrap yourself in it. But if it's not a Mokom Mindaron, so better to leave it there than wrap yourself in the Sefer Torah. Okay, basically continuation. Rabbi Shimon Omer Nosel Chaver. You give it to your friend, and each one gives to his friend, and each one takes a lesson for Amos. Until you reach the outer courtyard of the city, which is the first place where it's mishtamer, you put it down there. So if your son says Karmneda and Bnei Moshe, your wife gave birth in the field. So then you give to your friend to friend, even if it's 100 people. They each carries less than 4 amos. A person can give a jug, a chavis of hefker, that doesn't have its own tchum. And Rabbi Yehuda holds chavis of hefker lo kana shvisa. So if you give it to a person, give it to his friend, and friend to his friend, feel chutz tchum, it's coming from outside the tchum because it's a chavis of hefker, and each one takes 4 less of ramos. Says lo telechzu yosim raglei ba'aleh. So he says no. Korban explains, of course, about what is hefker, but it doesn't get more than it would get if it had an owner who didn't make an eruv. So it only gets 2,000 amos from the place where you found it. That's more 2,000 amos. You can't bring it back into the city. So Gemara says, one said the name Ramona that we're talking about a child who's in danger. Mostly Chaber, so the other one said, sort of in their conversation to each other, one said it's a child of sakana, the other said sakana, if it's the child's in danger, so then yivyo biyad, just bring him straight. What is post with amos? There's nothing which I'm b'nei pikuach nefesh. So he says even by pikuach nefesh you can do it b'derech, even by pikuach nefesh do it b'derech heter. The article note 42 brings down a discussion in between the place. Okay, you do the maskona sasugi here. What are we pasking? Are you pasking a malkum bikuach nefesh? You do it b'derech heter, or a malkum bikuach nefesh? Forget about derech heter. You just do it b'yad. And Rogachover forget pasking the first way, and other people maybe Kishua pasking the other way. Okay, so the Rish Hashem Levi, Rish Hashem said the name of Levi. Really, the name is Levi Suchya. Shem Levi Suchya. I don't see that. Somebody comment on that. Don't see that. Maybe comment. Kach just says Kach Shmoy. Okay. Let's go So anything about Suchya? No, just Kach Shmo. It says in the Bavli it's called Levi Saba. Okay, the Levi the elder. So Shem Levi Suchya said bim army kalakari mastisin. When that which Abida said you give a jug from jug to jug, it means you're pouring from jug to jug. Okay, and it says the locaine. It should Reb Chaim puts in the word locaine osir. He says the chavis itself, you can't move, and not like we said because it's that chavis shall have is okay, because it's only the liquid in the chavis, and that would be Rabbi Yehuda Kedaite. That's Rabbi Yehuda who's like his opinion. The Rabbi Yehuda, and here the carbon Ada changed gears completely, and Rabbi Chaim changed gears completely. He says not Omer Mashke Tofech, which is but rather that Peter Mayim Neshem Mamish. Rabbi Yehuda is one who says by the water in a dough doesn't have anything determine the tchum of the dough because the liquid is insignificant. So here too, Rabbi Yehuda Shita, so not that the chavetz is not going to have shvisa. Chavetz can be going to have shvisa, but the liquid is insignificant. So therefore, as long as you can pour from chavetz to chavetz, you can take the liquid as far as you want, and you're not limited by the tchum. Okay, this is again a relatively short plot for Eruvin. I think we got to the bottom of Samach Dalet base, and we will stop here for today.